I guess it's time to talk about no bullshit. And we're not even reviewing a no bullshit video today, actually, all things considered. He actually just has a very strange tweet that I want to look at. Mainly because through Brooks Heatherly's tweets, for those who don't know, No Bullshit's real name is Brooks Heatherly. Through his tweets, we can get a more distilled version of the stupid that comes out of No Bullshit. And if you're wondering why I'm being so flagrantly insulting when I'm talking about No Bullshit, it's because I don't care. When it comes to Brooks Heatherly, I actually do not care how insulting I am, because I know for a fact that he does not care how insulting he is, and how openly he sympathizes with things like white supremacy and Nazi ideas. So, as a result of that, I don't have any predilections or any reservations as to how I feel and speak about this particular individual. But let's take a look at his tweet and see if we can't map out some problems. Let's get rid of the no display there. Why is it just masks? Surely gloves would help too. Or what about goggles to cover your eyes? Earmuffs might help too. Seems strange that masks are the only precaution pushed. Now, I'm sorry if that no bullshit impersonation was terrible. I could play the real thing if you want your ears to bleed. But okay, so let's first consider what's No Bullshit's audience. As somebody who used to be in his audience, mind you, I used to unironically watch No Bullshit back when I used to work at Publix. When I was trying to find every reason that my ex, who was a feminist, was wrong. So I, of course, gravitated to people like No Bullshit. So speaking as somebody who used to be in that base, who is he talking to? Likely, he is talking to the conspiratorially minded. He's talking to the people who don't need an answer, but love a very compelling question. This is the same thing that happens with people like Call for an Uprising, where they don't need an answer to a question, they just need a very well-crafted question. Now, I'm not going to accuse Brooks Heatherly of making a very well-crafted question. That would be a lie. But let's break down this, knowing that the people who are being targeted here are the people who love well-crafted, or at least can fall for well-crafted questions that they cannot get an answer to. Because what happens when you have a question like this that is crafted, there's usually a suggested answer, right? In this case, the suggested answer is that there's some illegitimacy to wearing masks. So first, why is it just masks? Surely gloves would help too. Well, let's talk about how COVID works for a second. I don't know how many times I've said the same damn thing, but COVID, the virus, the virus itself that causes the disease, the coronavirus that causes COVID, this virus exists as a 1.5 micron item. Masks cover 2.5 micron and higher items, which would mean that the first response is that COVID can breach the mask, except it still can't, because COVID cannot travel on its own. The coronavirus cannot travel on its own. It travels on water droplets. Water droplets are 3 to 3.5 microns in size, which means they get stopped by a mask. This is also the reason why when you go, well, isn't your mask working? You point out that it's not, my mask is working, so I'm fine. It's that your mask needs to be working so that you don't breathe on me. I don't know how many times I have to say it like this, so instead, we will argue this in a different way. You and I are having a conversation, but this conversation is going to end with me sharting on your face. You cannot stop this, and I understand that this is a disgusting thing to think about, but at the end of this conversation, I am going to deliberately shart on your face. It's going to be wet, it's going to be messy, and it's going to be everywhere. Now, in this situation, should you wear pants on your face to protect you, or would it be better for me to just be wearing my pants so that my shart goes everywhere in my pants and I'm the only one responsible for cleanup? Well, anybody with at least one working brain cell, maybe two if they're lucky, can figure out that I would rather the person who's going to shard on my face have their pants on, unless they're into something kinky. 2 girls, 1 cup is a thing. But for the most of us, for the majority of us, we're going to want them to be wearing their fucking pants. Now, when you cough, when you breathe, when you spit, and you spit when you speak, I know I just did, you need to be wearing a mask, at least for the time being. Why? Because when you speak, when you spit, when you cough, when you sneeze, every single bit of that contains water droplets. I'm sure you've had at least one friend just speaking to you in normal conversation, and then just that little tiny bit of spit fires and hits you on your face, and you're like, dude, that was gross. Drink some water, fucking hell. I'm sure at least one of you have had that happen. Water vapor does this too. This is not just the physical. Water vapor is physical too. Anyway, point is, you get the point. Now, in an ideal world, if you're wearing your mask and they're wearing theirs, then neither of you should be infecting each other. This is going to be much more safe. Now, would gloves help too? Well, yes. If you are constantly touching your face and stuff, then gloves will help. But here's the thing. The difference between the mask and gloves is that if I touch a COVID-infected surface with my glove, I may be protected until I touch my face with that glove or an article of clothing with that glove. I may be protected, but every item I touch with that glove afterwards will still carry the infection. If I'm a fast food worker wearing a glove and I take somebody's card that they just breathed on and they have COVID, this glove may protect me, potentially, but the next person whose card I take is going to have it too, because I'm going to transfer it to them. This is not the same thing as with the mask. If the mask that catches it before it goes anywhere, Brooks. You run a channel called No Bullshit, and yet basic elementary concepts like this are very hard for you to understand. What about goggles to cover the eyes? Well, I don't need goggles to cover my eyes if you're not spitting in them, good sir. I don't need protective goggles for my face when you're sharding all over it if you are protecting your bum. What about earmuffs? They might help too. Might? Why the fuck are we talking about earmuffs, Brooks? No bullshit? No cow patties? All bullshit. Whatever the fuck euphemism you want to use, I don't care. How the fuck were earmuffs going to work against COVID? And of course he ends, like I pointed out, it seems strange that masks are the only precaution pushed. Yes. Well, masks and social distancing, because of course my spit can only fire so far. It's not strange if you have a singular working brain cell that is working overtime to struggle to understand basic elementary concepts. But of course, Brooke does not appeal to that base. I know because I used to be that base. He offers intuitive things. Things that are easy to grasp initially, whether or not they might be debunked later. That's what he offers on his channel. That's what he offers in general. It's nice, comforting stuff. You get to feel really smart. But then you end up accepting bullshit. Now, there are some responses to this tweet that I like. You know, you're right, but masks are the most effective single item that one can reasonably expect people to wear in this case. Not that hard. This is somebody who's not even tearing him down, just pointing out, you might be right, but masks are still the best thing here. You forget that we have social distancing and we have to wash hands often. The other should be really obvious. I remember when they talked about wearing masks in stores. I was wearing gloves too because everyone can just touch something and lay it back. Now I don't wear gloves because I see people picking everything up just as normal. This is not a good reason. Now, granted, I pointed out the issues with the gloves here, but that's still not a good reason. But I don't want to get in the weeds with all of that stuff. I wanted to focus mainly on Brooks, on No Bullshit. And while I could just do a response to this on Twitter for giggles, I do think that going into the minutia of this sometimes is maybe a little more fun. Again, depending on your audience, they can be convinced more by a suggestive question than by an accurate answer. Because a suggestive question lets to make them feel smart when they invent their own answer, regardless of how accurate that answer may be.